Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today we have 3 new stories for you, starting with a warm-up story about a funny camping situation. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Are you sure? My 5 friends and I were out camping for a week or so. We've been battling insects for days since my one friend got drunk and vomited all over the ground in the middle of camp. This guy, let's call him Hippo since he's a bit husky, he does this sort of stuff all the time. Needless to say, I'm pretty PO'd at him. I have flies and bees constantly flying around me when I'm in camp. So as we sit around playing a card game, a hornet starts buzzing around, and we try to swat it a couple times, but to no avail. Then it lands on Hippo's hand. He points at a spray can I have near me and asks me to spray it. His eyesight isn't the best, but I figured he knew what it was. Spray adhesive, because that day, he'd been using it to fix a tent he'd put an arrow through. I pick up the can and looked him deep in the eyes and said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yup." I shrugged and blasted the hornet. The hornet started stinging the crap out of him, and his flailing couldn't dislodge the now sticky hornet. Finally, he smashes his hand and it into the table. Exasperated, he asks, "Why'd you do that?" To which I answer, "You said to." And our second story. If you don't like the job, you can just quit. Okay. A bit of context here. I'm originally from Syria, and I spent around 7 to 8 months in Sudan, Africa, and that country, being a third world country and super poor, didn't have any good jobs. But at the same time, prices were so cheap you can live with only around $100 a month. Rent, bills, food, and water. But gasoline was expensive to the point you might need around $50 to $100 just for commuting to work. So it comes to around $200 a month if you're going to work by any kind of transportation. As for jobs, the best you can do without prior experience is either work in a restaurant or a factory for at most $100, which meant you had to be close to the job or get them to cover transportation. So around 5 months ago, I got in contact with a restaurant owner and talked with him about a job offer I saw. The job we talked about was being a warehouse manager for the restaurant. My shift starts at 8 a.m. and ends at 6 p.m. 7 days a week with only 1 vacation day per month. And I get 1 sandwich per day as lunch and 1 meal per week to take home. I asked about the salary, and he said we'll discuss it later. I asked how I'll organize the warehouse, and he said he'll provide me with a laptop to work on later. I agreed to work a trial period of 1 week, and we'll then discuss the salary and see if it works out. First day on the job, he hands me a set of keys to the warehouse, and when I open it, I find a glorious mess. I asked my coworkers about it, and they said no one has worked as a warehouse manager for the past few months. I go in and start looking at what we have in the warehouse and taking notes. Then I start a new Google account on my phone and made a new Excel sheet on it and sorted everything there. By the end of day 1, I had gone through most of the things in the warehouse, and I only have 2 words to describe what I saw. Holy crap. It was such a mess that the workers didn't even know what they had in that warehouse, i.e., they need mustard. They don't find it in the moment they look at the shelves, they buy a new box. And I can say for sure the warehouse was left like this for more than a year because I found meat in the freezer that was expired since more than 2 years ago. I'm never going to eat anything with meat in it from that restaurant. Second day on the job, I started actually doing my job by ordering new supplies, sorting the list I made on my phone by type so we can find items in it quickly, putting away the expired products, etc. During my second day, and out of nowhere, the boss comes to the warehouse and gives me a list of everyone in the restaurant and tells me to take their attendance because the guy responsible for this is busy with other things in the kitchen. I tell him I still don't know anyone in the restaurant, but he insists that I can just learn their names while doing my job. Okay, whatever. I'm trying to impress him the first few days, so I'll do it. By the end of day 2, I'd finished inputting everything into my phone, throwing away all expired ingredients, and even taking attendance. All that's left is physically sorting out the warehouse to make it look better, and I'll have done a great job, and was hoping for a good answer from the boss. I go on to discuss things with him at the end of my shift. I show him how I sorted everything on my phone and tell him that once he bring over the laptop, we can just move the file there, and it's easy for anyone to check the inventory since it's on Google and all that stuff. Then I explained to him this state of the warehouse when I came and how much I worked to make it better. And he was really impressed and praised me for a job well done. Then I asked how much my salary will be. Him: "Your salary will start at $60 and then as you work, I'll improve it and maybe in a few months you'll reach $120. Me: "What? I can't afford to even stay alive until then. Transportation between here and my house alone is $50. Are you telling me not to eat or pay rent during this month? At least?" He cuts me off with an angry voice: "If you don't like it, then you can just leave." I figured he wasn't someone to be reasoned with, so I immediately answered, "Okay," and left. Bullet successfully dodged. The next day, one of the coworkers there calls me asking where I keep the list of their inventory because he didn't find it, and I answered that there is no list. He was surprised and asked about the list I showed the boss, and I said, "Oh, that? It was actually on my phone." And he asked me to send it to him, to which I reply with, "I'm sorry, but since I quit, I just removed the file from my phone. Have fun sorting through that mess," and I hang up. It wasn't that big of a victory, but at least I didn't give them the results of my efforts for free, because it happened that my 2 days of work there were unpaid. And our last story: don't steal my overtime. I work in IT for a large company. A year ago, we were a bit short-staffed, so we finally picked up a new coworker. We'll call him Mark. When I saw Mark's resume, there were a few red flags. For example, he had close to 10 different jobs in the past 5 years. For the first few days, everyone was okay with him, but after a few shifts, we noticed a pattern. He would constantly browse gaming sites, go home for lunch so he could play with his games, which was fine since it's his lunch break anyway, and after coming back from break, he'd have his iPad with him so that he can watch Twitch after business hours. We work 12-hour shifts and the data center is pretty dead around 5 p.m. He was a pure video game addict. Don't get me wrong, I'm okay with people slacking off, but I at least want them to learn how to do their job first so they can be of help when needed. For the first 3 months, my team tried our best to train him, but he was way more focused on gaming than actually learning the job. He never retained anything we taught him because he just wasn't interested. My team kept telling our manager about his lack of progress, but our manager just chalked it up to us doing a horrible job of training him. When Mark was 8 months into the job, he still didn't know how to do the basics that most people already pick up by the first week, and our manager still refused to fire him. Most assumed that he didn't have the balls to pull the trigger on it. At that point, our team was already so fed up with Mark that we just ignored him and gave up training him. Our team is 24/7, so we cover for holidays, but the company only wants 2 staff members max for holiday shifts because they don't want to pay too much overtime. When the next holiday shift was coming up, I volunteered for it with another coworker. I love the overtime pay, and plus I didn't want Mark to work it because if something did blow up, he'd be useless. I worked holidays alone with Mark before and did all the work, really frustrating. This didn't sit well with Mark though, and he brought it up to me. He told me it wasn't fair that I was working more holidays than him, and he wanted to work this next one. He also brought it up with my manager, and I was pretty much forced to let him have it. I saw the smug look on his face as he rejoiced in his triumph, but deep down, that was the last straw for me. I didn't believe that this guy deserved to get overtime pay for a shift that I know he wouldn't be lifting a finger for, so I felt like I had to get my revenge. I started browsing his Facebook page to try and dig up dirt on this guy, and it turns out his Facebook was a goldmine. The guy was always complaining about work and made his status updates public so that I could see it without even being his friend. Here are a few that I found. Looks like the fine folks at networking finally got around to blocking sites like 9gag, Imgur, and Reddit here at work. Good thing I still have my phone and tablet. So the new proposed schedule for this job was released. Someone in HR needs to be shot. Once I found these, I forwarded screenshots to my coworkers, and that eventually reached my manager. This woke my manager up, and he was finally on a mission to get Mark fired. The only tricky part was that Mark's Facebook name was fake, and he had no pictures of himself in his profile. The only reason I knew it was his Facebook was because I always saw him on it during work. My manager decided to take a stab anyway and had a one-on-one meeting with Mark and showed him the Facebook page and asked him if it was his. As we predicted, Mark denied it all. After that meeting, my manager gave me the update that we don't have enough evidence to fire him. I was so close to getting him that I didn't want to let this B-turd slip through. I searched his Facebook even more, found his wife's Facebook page, and sure enough, her pictures were also public, and it had quite a few pictures of Mark tagged with his Facebook profile. Nailed him. My manager brought up the pictures, and Mark had no choice but to admit it was him. He even had the balls to say to my manager, "The only reason I lied about my Facebook page the first time was because I wanted to protect you, my manager, just in case this would bring trouble from HR." He was fired on the spot. Felt so good. The aftermath. My manager still had to deal with Mark a few times via email forwards. Apparently, after Mark got fired, he sent an email to my manager's boss saying how my manager made my team gather the evidence so that Mark can get fired before he moves to the U.S. We didn't even know he was moving to the USA. In fact, he always said how he hated that country, so it was a surprise to us. He also sent an email to my manager about how he found out he has cancer, and since he doesn't have a job, he can't afford the medical bills for it. Not sure if Mark was just lying about that to make my manager feel bad, but I wouldn't put it past him. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.